All of these trade rumors keep pointing us in one direction for what the Reds should do with their outfield.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We have been talking about the Reds in podcast form for about 14 years combined. We love the Reds. We love baseball. We have taken our love for this team, our love for the game, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And on today's podcast, we are going to be discussing all of these trade rumors and where exactly it is that they are taking us in regards to this outfield. We're also going to do a deep dive on the starting rotation and basically rank how much trust we have in the pitchers that the Reds have right now. And then, of course, because we are live today here on YouTube, and thanks for joining us, by the way, we are going to be digging into your questions and comments about the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to do all of that on today's show, which is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase today. All right, Jeffrey, let's get into this because there's lots and lots of rumors swirling around, and we've been talking about all of them as they come across our desks, and they're leading us kind of all in one direction, one thought process about the outfield.
Yeah, just go sign an outfielder. Like, I love the different rumors that are, Luis Robert, he's talented, but he's got injury concerns. Taylor Ward, he has shown some good stuff, but is he a press conference guy? Probably not. Lane Thomas and Josh Naylor, like, all of these would help improve the team in some way. All of them cost a certain amount of prospects or a certain amount of major league players. I don't know if you saw this or not, Steve, on MLB.com, Mark Sheldon was kind of doing like a post-op of the winter meetings. And Nick Krall has said that they've been in multiple major leaguers for major leaguers trade conversations, not just prospects for major leaguers. So they have not just had one, but multiple conversations that have involved current major league players. So I say all this to say this. If you just fork out the cash and you look Santander or Teoscar Hernandez dead in the eyes and you say, how many homers could you hit at Great American Ballpark? And if you make the money make sense, why can't you get them to come to Cincinnati? Like, that seems so much easier than putting all these prospects together and making sure you outbid somebody, which the Reds were already outbid by the Red Sox to get Garret Crochet. Bob Nightingale reported that the Reds were one of the 5 final teams to be in the runnings for the White Sox ace. But all of that, just go sign somebody.
I think I'm in agreement with you, especially after our conversation yesterday where I had you on the ropes because I was right about Luis Robert.
Right about the past, not about the future.
I think that the way to look at this is that it would be much simpler to go out and spend the money, right? I'm not sure the money's the problem, actually. You know, the more I think about it, given what Nick Krall has said, what we've heard about the budget, everything that the organization has said is they're willing to, spend a little bit more money. What Nick Krall's words were for a premier player, right? But I think it's the years. I think that's where the sticking point is right now. That 15-year deal for Juan Soto has kind of reset the whole. It's reset the whole market. I mean, you look at that deal. Look at what the Yankees are giving Max Fried, an 8-year deal. I think that is where the sticking point is right now. I bet the conversations with these guys are they don't want a 3-year deal with an option and a buyout. They're want a 6-year deal with an option and a buyout. And that's, I think, a problem for the Reds organization as a whole. They're not going to give out long contracts.
That's true. I'm guessing that Teoscar Hernandez is betting that he's on the downslope of his prime and he doesn't really want to hit free agency again because what's that going to look like? Santander has a little bit more of an argument because he's slightly younger. But even still, like if you're talking double-digit deals, I could see why Nick Krall would be out on that. I think that Joey Votto is the last double-digit year deal that they will give to a player unless they give a double-digit year deal to Elly De La Cruz. Like, and we could have, and it's a separate discussion, but we could have another discussion on another day about is there anyone else on the roster you would give a 10 or more year deal too. And I think there's so many different angles to that. I don't want to jump into that right now. But that being said, I definitely don't want to give a 10 plus year deal to a free agent. There's lots of different studies and different analysis that people have done about free agent deals that are super long and why they just never ever pan out for one reason or another, if it's injuries or if it's the age of the player when they sign the deal, things like that. So I can understand the years sticking point. For me, though, I think that still comes back to money, because I think you can buy out years with better AAV, better average annual value on the deal for the player. Like Teoscar Hernandez signed a 1-year deal with the Dodgers last year for, what was it, $23.5 million. And everyone said that felt like an overpay. But for 1 year, you really don't hamstring yourself at all. And I think that's the big sticking point is, do you give a guy $25 million, but he's asking for 6 or 7 years? That is a huge financial commitment. I think the Reds are like, we'll give you 25 for 3, to your point. And they're like, yeah, we want to see more than that. So do you go up to 27? Do you go up to 28? I still think that is a better thing for the Reds to stomach, a better thing for the Reds to risk than sending off some of their prospects. Because as much as I made the point yesterday that how close is Cam Collier or Sal Stewart to the major leagues really, you would still like to have that in your back pocket if you can handle it. And there are 2 guys out there right now that are both podium, press conference, jersey ceremony worthy guys that all you got to do is hand them money. And I really wish that is the angle that they would take. But every single rumor we keep hearing is trade.
Yeah, and they're still in the trade for a starting pitcher lane for whatever reason as well. So, I'm not quite sure what Nick Krall is doing. I wish he would do something. Again, I'm still stuck with the poke him with a stick, GIF at this point, because it's, and I guess maybe it's become maybe we're just being impatient, Jeff, because, there was a time that there wasn't this much focus on the winter meetings, right? There wasn't this much just attention paid to the winter meetings because it's a big off season. And there's still plenty of time for Nick Krall to make a move. Really, I think where my angst is coming from is as we see guys come off the market, as we see teams making moves, you naturally find yourself being like, well, what about the Reds? What about us? What are we going to do? It's the same thing with the backup catcher conversation that we had, right? It's not that, that's the move we're most excited about, but you look around and guys are signing and there's not a lot left. And you're like, I don't want the Reds to be left behind. They've got to do something. And I think, we talk about, do we trust Nick Krall or not? And you and I both generally land in an area where we trust him. And if that's the case, I guess we have to trust that he is having these conversations and he's not willing to let himself get fleeced. And that's why nothing's happened.
Yeah. And I think too, like to your point about are we impatient? We are impatient because of how the NFL and how the NBA's offseason goes. They have a point in their offseason where free agency opens. And it feels like that day, there's like 700 signings that are announced. And that's not just, for one team, that's for the entire league. And so there's a lot of folks that are just like, well, Major League Baseball's offseason is boring. Compared to them, yes, because it's a slow burn. Like the winter meetings are traditionally a spot where a lot of moves do happen, but it's also traditionally a spot where the Reds general manager at the time, or president of baseball ops, uses that as a great jumping off point for a lot of deals. We always hear the Reds will make a trade in late December or early January, or sometimes even February. And they're like, yeah, that started at the winter meetings. I don't think that there's a scenario where they call up somebody. It doesn't happen like a fantasy trade, right? Like you call up somebody like, I got this guy, you got this guy, let's go. And then it happens. Like there's a lot of sitting on your hands. There's a lot of, all right, well, the Reds are interested in him. Let's see who else is. Are the Cubs, are the Dodgers? There's so many different angles to this that are out of Nick Krall's hands as far as getting a deal done. And I was thinking back to some of the moves, like, the Homer Bailey trade where the Reds got Yasiel Puig and, of course, Kyle Farmer being the big player in that deal. And then you've got signings of Nick Castellanos and Nick Martinez. None of that happened during the winter meetings. In fact, Nick Castellanos, it was almost February when the Reds signed him. So there's definitely a frustration with people thinking that the Reds are being slow, but this is just how the baseball offseason goes, unfortunately. But that's why we're covering all the different rumors. That's why I'm happy that the Reds are in on so many different. I mean, they could be in on no rumors. There could be nothing linked to the Reds right now, and we would really be mad at that point. Like, at least we have rumors to complain about and not inactivity to complain about. I think that something's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks. Between Christmas and New Year's isn't usually when it happens. It's either before Christmas or after New Year's. So there's like a 10-day span in there where I don't think we're going to see any news at all. But I believe that the Reds are getting ready to make some moves here. And quite frankly, it needs to be signing a free agent outfielder. I'd rather see that than a trade at this point. But you know what, Steve? The Reds are continually linked to pitchers. And there's one reason for that. Trust. There's never a wrong time during any sports season to get a big return over at FanDuel, because right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. You don't have to be like that one guy. I remember hearing that there was a guy that bet $3 million on a game yesterday on the Eagles to beat the Panthers. That was crazy talk. You don't have to bet that. You know, just put $5 down. That's all you got to do. Plus, you can check out baseball futures. There's the NL pennant, the future for the NL pennant. The Reds odds actually got longer since Juan Soto went to the Mets. They are now 40-1 to win the National League. Look, they're going to get better, and Terry Francona is going to make them better. So that just seems juicy to me. I'm throwing a couple of bucks on that. Trust me, you should do it too over at FanDuel.com. Get a big payday today on your sports knowledge over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. They are an official sponsor of the NFL. We are talking Reds baseball here today, all day, every week, every month, all throughout the offseason, getting you ready for what should be a playoff year in 2025 under Terry Francona and the Cincinnati Reds. We're glad that you're alongside. Make sure you subscribe to get at least 30 minutes of Reds talk in your feed every single day. And as you can see the little tag down at the bottom of the screen, we are live right now. So make sure you jump into the comment section. A lot of great folks carrying on the conversation right now. We'll get into questions and comments a little bit later on in this show. But I wanted to focus on this, Steve, because we keep wondering, as much as outfield is the need, and coming into the season or the offseason, you could say that maybe there was a joint, what is the top need? It's either starting pitching or the outfield, but they've really addressed starting pitching with Nick Martinez and Brady Singer. So why do they continue to be linked to starting pitching? Well, number one is you can improve a team a lot of different ways, but I think that this really stems from how much they trust the guys on the staff. So I compiled a rankings here, a little graphic, because I'm better at Canva than you are. So I put this all together, and I included the prevailing starting pitcher rumor right now for the Reds, which is Nick Pivetta. Used to pitch for the Red Sox for the last couple of years. He is a free agent at the moment. And I said, okay, where does everybody rank on the trust list, the trust rankings for Reds starting pitching? And obviously you start off with Hunter Green. He didn't throw the most innings on the team as of last year. Brady Singer takes that away from him, coming over from Kansas City, but he was absolutely the most effective. Under 3 ERA, strikeouts per 9 over 10, walks per 9, a stomachable 3.4. You look at these statistics, you put them all together, and you say, is he going to repeat that next year? I absolutely believe that he's going to be around that ERA number. He's going to be around that strikeout number. Hopefully the walk number gets a little bit better, but not much higher. And I think that innings pitched is going to get a lot better as well. So he is at the top of the rankings for me on this list.
Looking at this list, Jeff, and, kudos to you for getting something really right. You're right here. This is exactly the same way that I would break this down.
Wondered if that would be the case. That's nice.
It's exactly how I would do it. With Brady Singer at number 2, even though we haven't seen him pitch in a Reds uniform, you look at his body of work, the 179 and 2/3 innings, 32 career start or season starts last season. You look at what he's able to do. I trust that. I trust he's bringing that same game. I trust that he'll be about the 8.5 NKs per 9, and I trust that he'll stay under 3 in walks per 9. I like, he's my number 2 trusted guy. I like Andrew Abbott at 3. That's exactly where I would put him, directly behind the guy you just brought in and the guy that's your ace. Andrew Abbott has been Mr. Reliable for the most part. He's had some bumps as he has learned and grown, but he is a bulldog, and I trust him to continue to be a bulldog and get things done. You look at Nick Martinez, and number 4, I think, is about right, because I'm not sure he's going to be able to live up to the hype that and the pressure that we're going to put on him, because that's what we do around here in Cincinnati. We have these unreasonable expectations, these lofty goals we set for guys. And I know he just got paid a lot of money, and he's coming off a 6-week span where he pitched the best baseball of his life. So it's going to be hard for him to achieve that again and to maintain that momentum. So I feel like he slots in at number 4. I get including this free agent rumor-ish talk, but Pavetta's not coming to Cincinnati. They're not signing a free agent starting pitcher. It's not going down. So I'm throwing him out. Number 5 is out the door. Nick Lodolo, I have a lot of trust issues with Nick Lodolo, and it's not that I distrust his ability, and it's not that I distrust his stuff. I distrust that middle finger and the blisters that keep showing up on it. I distrust the fact that we can't get him over the hump into a 150 inning season. He seems to break down every single time. So I don't have a lot of trust there at all. And then, of course, you get into the rookies and the young guys, right? You get into Rhett Lauder, Chase Burns, Chase Petty, Connor Phillips. Those are all guys that really haven't proven anything yet. Rhett Lauder showed us maybe he could be something. He looked like he was might kind of be something, but he's got to get out there and prove it. What do we know? We don't know. All we know is that he had a nice little run when he was forced into action. So we're going to have to see from him what he really is over the course of a long season. 30 innings at the major leagues, a career is not made. So I don't trust. I don't know. And then the rest of those guys have showed us nothing. And Connor Phillips, especially, he's really going to have to put in the time and the effort for me to even come close to trusting him in the big league rotation. So you nailed this, Jeff. This is exactly where I am. This is exactly how I feel about these guys. And so it might feel like the Reds have their rotation and they have their depth and they have all of their things. There's still a lot of questions here that are answered with the starting rotation. And, and then when you look at this as a group, when you look at this as a body of starting pitchers, how much do I trust this group? I don't know. I trust the first 3 starters really well. 4 and 5. Yes. I don't know. I have some trust issues there.
Well, and there's also a point to be made on this list too, is that looking at the trust, the rankings that I've put together here, when it comes to a playoff series, it feels like those are the top 3. And you move Nick Martinez to the bullpen, he becomes a weapon for you on the long side. Nick Lodolo, Rhett Lauder, the same deal with that. Nick Pivetta to me would be interesting. And I looked a little bit deeper into this rumor. Number one, these statistics are very nice. Like, I would like to have him at the back part of this rotation. The problem is the market is insane right now. Like, according to Spot Track, the market value for Nick Pivetta is $15.1 million a year. That seems a little high for a guy that has never had an ERA for a season below 4. Now, the strikeouts per 9 and the walks per 9, that was a nice little split there. However, the walks per 9 is a bit of an outlier compared to the rest of his career. He's been more in the 3s, right around where Hunter Green was, 3.5 or so. Same with the strikeouts, a little bit higher than his careers. So there's a bit of an outlier to his 2024 performance, but I'd be interested to see if he improves on that, maybe give him a 2-year deal. If it's a 2-year, $15 million deal, I'm fine with that. But then you've got to get really creative with how you acquire the outfield piece there, because you still have to get somebody. You cannot roll. I don't believe, like, if there is a trade on the table for Taylor Ward, or if there's a trade on the table with the Guardians for Lane Thomas and Josh Naylor, I'd be very interested in those things. And the Luis Robert deal, depending on what is involved, because if you trade Nick Lodolo, or if you sign Nick Pivetta to this rotation, but then you trade one of Nick Lodolo or somebody else, then you take the trust and you weaken it again. So there's a lot of shuffling around with this rotation that I feel like the Reds are set up very well. And if they could add somebody to it, I'd be very intrigued as to how the rest of the season is to go. Because looking back at that list with Nick Pivetta involved, let's just say outside hire, Mr. Outside hire with a decent ERA, decent K per nine, decent walks per nine. Doesn't have to be Pivetta, but let's just put somebody in there, a veteran guy who has proven it, who can be your number 5 starter. Then you take all the pressure off of Nick Lodolo. Figure it out, man. Like, figure out that breaking ball. You have your time. Rhett Lauder then becomes a luxury, whereas right now it kind of feels like we have to count on him a little bit. And I love Rhett Lauder, and I love the profile that he has. But I said coming into his major league debut, he doesn't walk people. Steve, he walked a lot of people whenever he got up here in his 30 innings. And that's why the walks per nine was the highest on this list. And I hope that is something that can fall off, but at the same time, that is hope. And as much as the Reds can mitigate having to hope in the outfield, I would love it even more so if they can mitigate hope in the starting rotation. Make that a proven commodity, and then I can hope a little bit more in the outfield.
The thing is, though, Jeff, they're fast approaching where they're going to run out of money for an outfielder. At least from a standpoint of what they're willing to spend, not what they have or what they can spend, but what they're willing to spend. So you go out in the way that the free agent pitcher money has been this offseason, you sign Mr. Outside hire. That's probably it. That's going to be the last of the money. But listen, the comment section, Jeff, has been jumping off this entire show, and it's time for us to get to the favorite part for both you and I, which is to get into that question and comment section and talk with all of the viewers. And we're going to do that coming up next. You can take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets, NBA tickets, NHL, NFL, all of the tickets over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Listen, Jeff and I tell you about this app all the time. We both use it. We use it to go to Reds games. We head down to the banks. We find our favorite spot. We post up. We have dinner, we have a beverage, and then right about time for first pitch, we jump on the Gametime app, we get a great deal, and we head on into the stadium. If you're going to a venue that you're not familiar with, Gametime has the view from your seat built right into the app, and with all-in pricing, you know exactly what you're going to pay when you click on that ticket. Again, just download that Gametime app and create an account. You use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, you're going to get $20 off already greatly discounted tickets. Terms do apply. Again, create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. Thanks for catching us live here on YouTube today. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can take us with you on the road, take us to the gym, take us in the car, take us for a walk, wherever you want to go. Take us with you. We are in all of the audio feeds.
Before we jump into the comments, there was one thing that I wanted to correct us slightly on, because you and I both poo-pooed the heck out of the Rule 5 draft of Cooper Bowman for the Reds. Middle infielder / outfield utility kind of guy, really fast, has questions with the hit tool. Baseball America ranks Cooper Bowman as one of the top 5 players from the Rule 5 draft to stick with the team that picked him. Kind of surprised me a little bit on that, Steve, because they cited, and this was the thing that kind of surprised me a little bit. They cited a lack of infield depth on the Major League roster. So what is Santiago Espinal? I don't know.
Here, that's the question. So I looked at this Rule 5 pick of Bowman, and I'm like, well, whose spot is he taking? Where are you going to use him? Or because he played, 3 games in center field when he was 12 years old, are they considering him an outfielder? So I'm not sure what this looks like. I don't see how he gets on the Major League roster and stays on the Major League roster all year. Now, if we were talking about a guy that you could stash at AAA, if we were talking about a guy that you could keep as an insurance policy, that's a different story. But you can't with him because it's Major League roster or nothing with him. He has to go back to the A's. So I'm sure he's hoping that he finds a way to stick on the Major League roster, both from a financial standpoint and from the point of staying the hell out of Sacramento. So both of those things are probably.
You mentioned going to AAA. That's what it'll feel like if he has to go back to it.
That's in
Yeah.
fact what it would be. So I don't know, Jeff. I mean, I'm sure that the kid has a lot of talent, and there's a reason that the Reds wanted to give him a look-see. But I stand by where we landed yesterday, which is he'll be around during spring training. He'll help fill the roster, and he'll get some at bats, and then we'll send him right on back over to the A's to continue his baseball career, because there just won't be room for him on the active roster.
Yeah, the Rule 5 draft for me is always one of those things that if the Reds aren't expected to contend, that's when I'm interested in what they do with the Rule 5 draft. But we're expecting playoffs here, and we are not out in front of our skis to be expecting that. So it's interesting that that was said that they believe he's going to stick with the Reds. I don't see it, but it'll be interesting to see how he pans out.
All right, let's jump into the comment section. We're going to start with Jinx here, because yesterday, Jeff, I had you on the ropes, brother. You were taking body blows, and you got saved by the bell as we went to a break. And that was all centered around the Luis Robert conversation. Jinx says, Luis Robert is risky as hell, but the Reds have been playing it safe for 34 years. I'd do it. This is the thing. In that conversation, we both kind of agreed it would take a starting pitcher to get it done. That's going to be part of the package, right? It's either going to be somebody from the major leagues right now, and you've centered in on Lodolo, which is probably, if it's going to be somebody from the major leagues, that's probably the guy that they would be talking about, or it's going to be multiple pieces of the rest of the depth, both the chases. It's going to be, somebody else from position player standpoint. Cam Collier is a name you floated out there in a Lodolo Collier package deal to get this guy, all for an outfielder that I just don't think can stay healthy. So Jinx, I get it. Sometimes you got to take a risk, but that's an awful big risk, because if you go sign an outfielder with money, the worst that can happen is you have to Will Myers it, and you have to eat those dollars and cut them and send them along their way, right? You trade from your strength, you trade the little bit of advantage that you have for somebody that's not reliable, and he doesn't pan out, you're stuck with him. I mean, I guess you could cut him, but you're not getting your prospects back. You're not getting what you gave up back. So I hope that they really are having serious talks with these free agent outfielders, and that they go that route, because what we're talking about in trade right now is just way too risky. I would much rather partner up with an organization like the Angels and get that not quite press conference guy via trade, because he's not going to cost all of the prospect capital. You can make a trade and still have something left over to go make another deal. So that's kind of where I'm at. Luis Robert, it's not that it's a risk. It's too much of a risk. I'm all for taking a risk. I just feel like that's too big a swing in the risk department, Jeff.
But I agree with Jinx's point. While it's a risky deal, the Reds need to get risky, because we're kind of getting to the point where it just feels like we're rinse and repeat, where we hope, and things don't work out because all we're doing is hoping. And I feel like the Reds need to make a risky move. They need to get creative. They need to go out there and risk it for the biscuit a little bit. I remember, reading all of the newspaper clippings and things like that whenever the past newspaper clippings of when the Reds acquired Joe Morgan, and people thought that Joe Morgan was a jerk, and they thought that he was bad for the clubhouse and that he wasn't going to work out, and how that ended up working out. There's always going to be risk involved with a trade or even with a free agent signing. And kind of like you mentioned, it's a little bit easier to cut bait from a free agent signing and not be like, man, we also have to stomach all of the prospects that we gave up here. But it's time for the Reds to go for this thing a little bit, because the whole idea of we are going to draft, develop, and bring everybody up, and everybody's going to progress, and everybody's going to get better has not really worked over my entire lifetime. So let's make a little bit of a risky move and see if that works out.
All right, let's jump to the next one. And you have one stashed, right? You want to jump to that one now, and then we'll go back into the comment section?
Yeah, let's do one more, and then we'll jump into that one.
Okay. So there's a lot of conversation going on about Will Benson right now. And I just want to dial back the talk on Will Benson. If he is on the major league roster to start opening day, it's an epic failure. The only place he should be is in Louisville. He doesn't have any trade value based on how he performed last year. He should not be on the active roster. I don't dislike Will Benson. I think he's had some moments. I think he's a really nice guy. I think maybe, sadly, he might just be a 4A player. He needs to go down to Louisville. He needs to work on some things and see if he can get it kind of dialed back in. Maybe he was pressing too much. We see this with professional athletes sometimes. Things start to go bad. They try and will their way into fixing it. No pun intended there, Will Benson. They try and will their way into fixing it, and it just makes it worse. And they're trying not to strike out. They strike out more. They're trying to manufacture it. It's all artificial, and it's all downhill. I hope that he's had the ability to take this offseason, clear his head, work on the things that were giving him a problem, get in the cage, just hit the ball without the pressure of everybody watching. I hope he can take what he's learned in the offseason into spring training, go down to Louisville, get better, and be a valuable insurance policy. That's, I think, his role in 2025.
Yeah, and I kind of I tend to agree. It's so tough because we as fans get connected to certain attributes about a player. This happened with Jonathan India. I still talk to people that are mad about the trade for Brady Singer. And I tell them there's a difference between a personality of a player and the production of that player. Jonathan India was a great personality and very easy to root for, but overall his career was just kind of mid when it came to what he brought to the table and on the hitting side and on the defensive side. Will Benson had a very nice 2023 and a very horrible 2024. So can Terry Francona make him better? I believe so. But I also think Terry Francona is going to make Jake Fraley better. I think he's going to make Stuart Fairchild better. I think he's going to make TJ Friedel, Spencer Steer. All these guys are going to be better in some way. And all Jake Fraley needs to do is get that power back that he had in his previous couple of years. And then that is where I see him being better than Will Benson. And as much as I love rooting for a guy like Will Benson, he has got to do a lot to show that he should be on this roster for opening day. And I don't know that he can do that in spring training. I think he should start the year in Louisville, and then we could see a little bit more from him.
All right. Well, I think that is a good spot to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thanks, guys, for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Click the like button, subscribe, click that notification bell, share the show with your friends. We love talking Reds baseball with you, and we want to talk Reds baseball with them. The offseason, there's a lot of it left. I know nothing happened there at the winter meetings, but there's still lots of rumors to track. The Reds are going to make some kind of a move, and we're going to be all over it. So we're going to keep gathering up the information. We're going to keep bringing it right back here to keep you locked on Reds every single